caretaker father falls from a ladder, not knowing a billionaire invites him to a blind date on Christmas. The December wind cut through Ryan Walker's blue work uniform as he stood in the employee parking lot of the Melbrook Hotel, staring at his 1987 Harley-Davidson. The motorcycle gleamed under the early morning sun, its deep blue paint catching the light like sapphires. At 28, Ryan had learned that some things in life were worth the calluses on your hands and the grease under your fingernails. This bike was one of them. He'd bought it 3 years ago from an estate sale, a neglected beauty buried under a tarp in some rich family's garage. The old man who'd owned it had apparently loved it once, maintained it religiously according to the service records Ryan found in the saddlebag. Then life happened as it does, and the bike sat forgotten while its owner grew old and died. Ryan had spent 18 months restoring it, piece by piece, learning the machine's language through YouTube videos and borrowed manuals, working by the light of a single bulb in his rented garage. Now, every morning before his 6 a.m. shift, he'd sit on that bike for exactly 5 minutes, not riding, just sitting, feeling the cold leather, touching the chrome, remembering why he chose this life, why he chose dignity over desperation. "Morning, Walker." Ryan looked up to see Marcus Chen, the head of hotel security, walking toward him with 2 steaming cups of coffee. "You're early, Marcus. Everything okay?" "Could ask you the same thing." Marcus handed him a cup, leaning against the bike carefully. "You know Mrs. Davenport's gonna have your head if she sees boot marks on this beauty." Ryan smiled despite himself. Marcus was one of the few people at the Melbrook who treated him like a human being rather than mobile furniture. "Mrs. Davenport doesn't come down to employee parking. I'm safe. You sure about that?" Marcus's eyes held a glimmer of something Ryan couldn't quite read. "I've seen her Range Rover parked here twice this week, early morning before anyone else arrives." Ryan felt something cold that had nothing to do with the December air. "The CEO parks in employee parking?" "That's what I said." Marcus sipped his coffee, watching Ryan's face. "Young Miss Celeste Davenport, 24 years old, richer than God, and she parks next to the dumpsters at 5:30 in the morning. Makes you wonder, doesn't it?" Ryan did wonder, but he wouldn't say it out loud. In his 2 years at the Melbrook, he'd never met the owner. She was a ghost that haunted the executive floor, a name on paychecks, a signature on policies. Young, they said. Beautiful, they whispered. Lonely, some claimed. But to Ryan, she was just another rich person whose floors he mopped and whose trash he emptied. "Time to clock in," he said, finishing his coffee. "Thanks for this, Marcus." "Hey, Ryan," Marcus called as Ryan headed toward the service entrance. "That bike of yours, it's special, isn't it? Like, really special?" "It's just a bike, Marcus." "No," Marcus said softly, almost to himself. "It's not just a bike. And you're not just a janitor. Some of us can see that." Ryan didn't respond. What could he say? That he'd been a mechanical engineering student once, 3 semesters away from his degree before his father's illness ate through their savings like cancer ate through his father's lungs? That he'd learned more philosophy from YouTube videos than some people learned in 4 years of college? That he read Seneca and Marcus Aurelius on his lunch breaks, finding comfort in ancient wisdom about dignity and purpose? The service entrance swallowed him into fluorescent lighting and the smell of industrial cleaner, his kingdom, his reality. The Melbrook Hotel was one of those places that tried to convince you that luxury was the same as happiness. 15 floors of marble and mahogany, crystal chandeliers that cost more than Ryan would make in 10 years, art on the walls that belonged in museums. But Ryan saw past the glamour. He saw the trash people left behind, the messes they made when no one was looking, the carelessness of those who'd never had to clean up after themselves. He'd learned to be invisible, to move through spaces like smoke, there and gone, leaving everything pristine but taking none of the credit. The executive meetings on the 12th floor where they decided the fates of hundreds of employees. He cleaned those rooms, the penthouse suites where celebrities and politicians did things they'd deny in public. He emptied those trash cans. The employee break room where housekeepers cried about unpaid bills and divorced maintenance workers planned custody battles. He sat there too, silent, understanding. Today was December 15th. The hotel buzzed with Christmas energy, every surface decorated with taste and precision. Ryan's job list included hanging the last of the exterior decorations, a task that required the extension ladder and a willingness to work 20 feet above the ground. He'd always been good with heights, comfortable even. Something about being up high, seeing the world from a different angle made him feel less trapped by circumstance. "Walker, you're on lobby detail this morning." Stephen Murphy, the facilities manager, was a red-faced man who wore his authority like cologne, heavy and obvious. He'd never liked Ryan, sensing perhaps that the young janitor was more educated than he let on, and threatened by it. "I thought I was on exterior decorations today," Ryan said evenly. "Yeah, well, plans change. The grand chandelier needs dusting before the Christmas gala tomorrow night. That means you, the extension ladder, and 2 hours of careful work. Think you can handle it without breaking anything priceless?" Ryan wanted to point out that he'd never broken anything in 2 years, that his hands were steadier than most surgeons, that he'd rebuilt a motorcycle engine from scratch. Instead, he said, "I'll be careful, sir. You better be. Mrs. Davenport herself will be checking everything before the gala. First time in 3 years she's actually attending one of these things. We need perfection, Walker. Can I trust you with perfection?" "Yes, sir." Stephen walked away, leaving Ryan with a task that was actually more challenging than it sounded. The grand chandelier hung in the center of the lobby, a massive crystal creation that caught light and threw rainbows across the marble floor. To clean it properly, he'd need to climb to the mezzanine level, extend the ladder out over the railing, and balance while reaching the upper crystals. It was dangerous work, the kind of task they'd normally hire a specialist for. But it was December, budgets were tight, and Ryan was expendable. He gathered his supplies: the extension ladder, cleaning solution, microfiber cloths, safety harness. The safety harness was his own, purchased after he'd watched another maintenance worker fall 2 years ago and shatter his leg. The hotel didn't provide them, said they were unnecessary for routine maintenance. By 7:30, the lobby had started filling with guests. Business travelers checking out, families arriving for pre-Christmas vacations, hotel staff moving with choreographed efficiency. Ryan set up his ladder, roped off the area with caution tape, and began his ascent. Up here, above the crowd, he felt a strange sense of peace. The hotel looked different from this angle, less oppressive, almost beautiful. He could see the whole lobby laid out like a stage, people moving through their roles, unaware they were being observed. He started with the lower crystals, his movements careful and practiced. Each piece needed to be wiped clean, checked for stability, dried to prevent water spots. Meditative work, the kind that let his mind wander. He thought about the Harley, about the weekend ride he'd planned through the mountain roads. He thought about the book he was reading, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and the passage that had struck him that morning. Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. Was he happy? The question caught him off guard. He wasn't unhappy. He had dignity, purpose, a motorcycle he loved, and a job that kept him fed and housed. But was he happy? "Excuse me, is it safe to walk through here?" The voice came from below. Ryan looked down, careful not to shift his weight too quickly. A young woman stood at the edge of the caution tape, blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing a white blazer over jeans, expensive sunglasses pushed up on her head. She carried a leather portfolio and a coffee cup that probably cost $15. "Give me 5 minutes to finish this section," Ryan called down. "Then I can move the ladder so you can get through." She nodded, stepping back, pulling out her phone. Ryan returned to his work, aware now of being watched. Something about her made him self-conscious, though he couldn't explain why. Maybe it was the way she stood perfectly still, not fidgeting with her phone like most people would, just watching. He reached for a crystal cluster at the chandelier's highest point, extending himself farther than he should have. His hand closed around the delicate glass, and that's when he felt it. The ladder shifted. Just an inch, but an inch was everything when you were 20 feet up. His weight had pushed too far over the center of balance. The ladder began to tip, slowly at first, like a tree deciding whether to fall. Ryan tried to shift back, but his movement only accelerated the disaster. The ladder went from tipping to falling, and suddenly he was in free fall, 20 feet of empty air between him and the marble floor. Time did that strange thing it does in moments of crisis. It stretched and compressed simultaneously. He saw the ceiling tiles pass, the chandelier crystals catching light, the horrified faces of people looking up. He thought about his Harley sitting in the parking lot. He thought about his father, dead 5 years, and wondered if this was how it felt when the cancer finally won. He thought, this is a stupid way to die. Then he hit something that wasn't the floor. Strong arms, impossible arms, caught him mid-fall. Not stopped him, but caught him. Redirected his momentum, absorbed the impact with trained precision. He slammed into the marble, but the angle was wrong for death. Broken ribs, maybe. Shattered bones, possibly. But alive. Pain exploded through his left side. His vision went white, then red, then gray. Through the haze, he saw a face above him, ocean blue eyes, blonde hair falling free from its ponytail, and hands moving over his body with professional certainty. "Don't move," the woman said. Her voice was calm, controlled, completely at odds with the chaos around them. "You've got possible rib fractures, definitely a concussion. Neck and spine appear stable, but we're not taking chances." You caught me," Ryan managed through the pain. "I redirected you," she corrected, her hands checking his pupils, feeling along his neck with gentle precision. "There's a difference. Someone call 911. Now." "I'm calling." That was Marcus's voice, somewhere in the growing crowd. "Tell them we need a backboard and neck brace," the woman continued, her hands moving to check his ribs, his abdomen, his legs. Every touch was clinical, professional. Possible internal injuries. 28-year-old male fall from approximately 6 meters. "I'm fine," Ryan tried to say, but pain cut off the words. "You're absolutely not fine," she said, and for the first time he heard something other than clinical detachment in her voice. Anger, maybe, or fear disguised as anger. Who the hell lets someone climb that high without a proper safety harness? "I have a harness," Ryan said. "In my bag. I was going to put it on." "Oh, well then," her voice dripped with sarcasm. "That would have been really useful when you were falling to your death." Despite the pain, despite everything, Ryan almost smiled. "You're angry." "I'm not angry. You're angry that I almost died." "I'm angry that this hotel has employees climbing 20-foot ladders without proper safety equipment or training. There's a difference." But her hands were shaking now, he noticed. Just slightly, but enough to see. She'd been terrified. "What's your name?" he asked, trying to focus on her face through the pain haze. "That doesn't matter right now. It matters to me. You saved my life." She was quiet for a moment, her hands still pressed against his ribs, feeling for breaks. "You don't need to know my name to get medical treatment. I'd like to say thank you, properly. Then thank me by staying still and not dying before the ambulance gets here." The paramedics arrived 12 minutes later. 12 minutes of Ryan lying on cold marble, the mysterious woman kneeling beside him, monitoring his breathing, checking his pulse, keeping him conscious and focused. She answered the paramedics' questions with medical precision, using terminology that made them look at her with respect. "Are you a doctor?" one of them asked. "I have medical training," she said, which wasn't really an answer. They loaded Ryan onto a backboard, securing his neck, preparing to transport him. As they lifted the stretcher, Ryan caught her wrist. "Wait," he said. "At least tell me something about you, so I'll know who to look for when I want to say thank you." She looked down at their hands, his work-roughened fingers around her delicate wrist, and for a moment, something flickered across her face. Then she pulled away gently. "I like Harleys," she said. "The old ones from the 80s. My father used to have one." Then she was gone, disappearing into the crowd before Ryan could process what she'd said. The ambulance doors closed, and the world became siren sounds and worried paramedic faces. At the hospital, they confirmed what the woman had assessed. 3 cracked ribs, a mild concussion, severe bruising, but nothing life-threatening. The doctor seemed impressed by the preliminary care he'd received. "Whoever stabilized you knew what they were doing," the doctor said. "Probably saved you from worse injuries. A fall like that, the instinct is to move, to check yourself. That can turn a cracked rib into a punctured lung real fast. Someone kept you still, kept you focused. You're lucky. Lucky." Ryan thought about that word as they released him 8 hours later with painkillers and orders to rest. Lucky. He'd almost died, but he was alive because a stranger with blue eyes and medical training had been in the right place at the right moment. Was that luck or something else? Marcus drove him home. A studio apartment in a neighborhood that was trying to convince itself it was up and coming. Ryan sat gingerly on his couch, every breath a reminder of his cracked ribs, and stared at the ceiling. "You need anything?" Marcus asked. "Food? More pain pills? Someone to stay with you?" "I'm good, Marcus, thank you." "That woman," Marcus said from the doorway. "The one who caught you. You know who that was, right?" Ryan looked at him. "She didn't give me her name. That's because everyone in that lobby already knew it. That was Celeste Davenport, Ryan. The CEO, the owner, the woman who signs your paycheck." The world tilted in a way that had nothing to do with his concussion. "That's impossible," Ryan said. "The CEO doesn't hang around the lobby at 7:30 in the morning. This one does, apparently. And she also has medical training, which nobody knew about until today. She saved your life, man. The owner of the hotel saved her janitor's life." After Marcus left, Ryan lay in the darkness of his apartment, processing. Celeste Davenport, the ghost of the executive floor, the mysterious woman who parked in employee parking at dawn. She'd caught him, redirected him, kept him alive with hands that knew exactly what to do. And she liked Harleys, old ones from the 80s, just like the one sitting in the employee parking lot with his name on it. His phone buzzed, a text from a number he didn't recognize. "This is Marcus. Before I forget, Stephen Murphy got fired this afternoon. Mrs. Davenport's orders. Something about negligent safety practices. Thought you'd want to know." Ryan stared at the message. Stephen Murphy, who'd ordered him up that ladder without proper safety checks, without training, without backup, gone. Because Celeste Davenport had decided an employee's life was worth more than convenience or budget savings. He thought about her hands on his ribs, checking for breaks. Her voice steady and calm, keeping him conscious. The moment when she'd looked at their hands touching and something had flickered in her eyes. He fell asleep thinking about blue eyes and Harley Davidsons, pain medication pulling him under into dreams that mixed memory with imagination. The next 2 days passed in a haze of pain and forced rest. The hotel sent flowers with a card signed by the entire staff. Marcus visited twice, bringing groceries and news. The Christmas gala had been a huge success, apparently. Mrs. Davenport had attended, stunning everyone with a midnight blue dress and an actual smile. "She asked about you," Marcus said on the third day. Ryan looked up from the book he'd been failing to read. "What?" "Mrs. Davenport, she asked me how you were recovering. Wanted to know if you needed anything. I told her you were too stubborn to accept help." "I'm not stubborn. I just don't need—" "Ryan," Marcus interrupted gently. "You live in a studio apartment that costs 2/3 of your paycheck. You ride a motorcycle in December because you can't afford a car. You're reading a 2,000-year-old philosophy book because you can't afford new ones. And you just almost died doing a job that should have been handled by trained professionals. Please, for once in your life, accept that maybe you need help." "I'm fine, Marcus." Marcus shook his head, but he was smiling. "You know what? You and Mrs. Davenport are exactly alike. Both too proud to admit you might need other people. It's almost funny. I'm nothing like a billionaire CEO. No. She drives a Range Rover but parks in employee parking because she doesn't think she deserves special treatment. She has medical training but works behind a desk because she's honoring her father's legacy instead of following her passion. She lives in a mansion alone because she doesn't trust anyone to see past her money. Sound familiar?" Ryan didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because Marcus was right, and that was terrifying. On December 20th, 5 days after his fall, Ryan returned to work against doctor's orders. His ribs screamed with every breath, but staying home meant thinking, and thinking led to dangerous places. Better to move, to work, to focus on something other than blue eyes and impossible questions. The hotel felt different now. People looked at him differently. They knew he'd almost died. They knew the CEO had saved him. They treated him like someone fragile, or maybe someone special. He hated it. "Walker," Jennifer from housekeeping approached him in the break room. "Can I ask you something personal? Depends on the question. Is it true that Mrs. Davenport caught you when you fell?" "She redirected my fall," Ryan corrected, echoing her words. "She didn't catch me, but she saved your life." "Yes." Jennifer bit her lip, hesitating. "Is she nice? In person?" Ryan thought about the fear in her shaking hands, the anger in her voice, the way she'd touched his wrist before disappearing. "I think she's complicated," he said finally. "Like most people. I've worked here 4 years and never seen her," Jennifer said. "Most of the staff haven't. She's like a ghost. But then she just appears out of nowhere and saves someone's life? That's not normal CEO behavior. Maybe she's not a normal CEO. Or maybe," Jennifer said quietly, "she's just been lonely, waiting for something to happen that would let her be human again." The words stuck with Ryan as he went about his day, moving slower than usual, every movement calculated to minimize pain. He thought about loneliness, about waiting, about being trapped by expectations and circumstances, and the weight of other people's assumptions. At 3 p.m., Marcus found him cleaning windows on the second floor. "You've got a delivery," Marcus said, his tone carefully neutral. "I didn't order anything." "Didn't say you did, come on." Marcus led him to the employee locker room. There, propped against Ryan's locker, was a box. Not wrapped, just a plain brown box with his name written on it in elegant handwriting. Ryan opened it carefully. Inside was a professional-grade safety harness, top of the line, the kind that cost more than he made in a month. And underneath it, a small card. "Because next time I might not be there. Stay safe. C." Ryan stared at the harness, something hot building behind his eyes. Not just the gift, but what it meant. Someone had thought about him, cared about his safety, spent money on making sure he'd be okay. See, he said aloud. Celeste. Or it could be from corporate, Marcus suggested, but his tone said he didn't believe it. That night, Ryan sat on his Harley in the employee parking lot, not riding, just sitting, thinking. The safety harness was in his locker along with the card. He'd read it maybe 20 times, studying the handwriting, trying to understand the person behind it. His phone buzzed. A notification from Harmony Bind, one of those blind dating apps he'd reluctantly downloaded 3 months ago after Jennifer had insisted he needed to get out more. He'd filled out the profile half-heartedly, answered the compatibility questions with brutal honesty, and then promptly forgot about it, until now. You have a high compatibility match, CD at 24, professional, looking for genuine connection. Would you like to message them? Ryan stared at the notification. CD 24, professional. It couldn't be. Could it? He clicked through to the profile. The pictures were deliberately vague, artistic shots that showed enough to intrigue, but not enough to identify. A woman on a beach at sunset, hands wrapped around a coffee cup, a silhouette against city lights. The bio was brief, looking for someone who sees past surfaces, who understands that wealth and happiness are different things, who believes in second chances and dignity over circumstance, must like motorcycles and old movies, must be willing to meet without judgments or expectations, must be brave enough to start over. His heart pounded against his cracked ribs. It couldn't be Celeste Davenport. The universe wasn't that convenient or that cruel. And yet, he looked at his own profile, created in a moment of weakness and loneliness. He'd been honest, maybe too honest. He'd written about philosophy and motorcycles, about dignity and purpose, about believing that how you do anything is how you do everything. He'd put up pictures of his Harley, his bookshelves, his hands covered in grease. Someone wealthy enough to afford Harmony Bind's premium matching service would have access to his full profile, would know he was a janitor, would see through any pretenses to the reality underneath. If this was Celeste Davenport, she knew exactly who she was messaging. His finger hovered over the message button. This was insane, reckless. He was a janitor with 3 cracked ribs and a studio apartment. She was a billionaire CEO who owned the building where he worked. Even if this was her, even if she was interested, what kind of relationship could they possibly have? But then he thought about her hands on his ribs, checking for brakes. Her voice saying, "I like Harleys. The old ones, from the 80s. My father used to have one. His father used to have one, past tense." Ryan looked at his own Harley bought from an estate sale 3 years ago. An old man had owned it, maintained it religiously, then died and left it forgotten in a garage. What if? No, that was impossible. The world wasn't that small, but his finger was already moving, clicking the message button, opening a chat window. "Hello, I'm Ryan. Your profile says you like motorcycles. Tell me about your father's Harley." He hit send before he could second-guess himself, then immediately wanted to take it back. Too direct, too personal. She'd think he was creepy, or invasive, or... 3 dots appeared. She was typing. The response came a minute later. "Hello, Ryan. That's a very specific question for a first message. My father had a 1987 Harley Davidson, blue paint, chrome details. He loved that bike more than anything except maybe me. When he died, I was supposed to sell it, but I couldn't. So it sat in our garage for 2 years until someone finally bought it at an estate sale. I've regretted letting it go ever since. Why do you ask?" Ryan's hands were shaking. His 1987 Harley Davidson, blue paint, chrome details, bought from an estate sale 3 years ago. Service records in the saddlebag, meticulous maintenance, every oil change documented. The bike he'd restored, the bike he loved. It had belonged to her father. He typed slowly, carefully. "Because I think I bought your father's Harley, and I think you already know that." The 3 dots appeared and disappeared 3 times before her response came. "I've been watching you ride it for 2 months. Every morning you sit on it for 5 minutes before work. You maintain it better than my father did. You love it the way it deserves to be loved. I should have introduced myself, but I didn't know how. How do you tell a stranger that they bought your father's favorite thing and made it beautiful again? That watching them care for something your father loved makes you feel less alone?" Ryan read the message 3 times, then 4. Something was happening here, something that felt bigger than coincidence or fate. He wrote, "I'm the janitor who fell off the ladder 5 days ago. You saved my life. and now we're matched on a dating app. If you tell me this is all coincidence, I won't believe you." Her response came faster this time. "It's not coincidence. I signed up for this app 3 months ago because I was lonely and tired of men who only saw my money. You showed up as a match 2 months ago. I've been working up the courage to message you ever since. Then you fell, and I caught you, and I realized that life's too short to be afraid of taking chances. So here's my question, Ryan Walker. Would you like to have dinner with me? A real date, not just matching on an app. No expectations, no judgments. Just 2 people who happen to like the same motorcycle, trying to figure out if they like each other too." Ryan stared at his phone, his heart doing complicated things in his chest. This was insane. This was Celeste Davenport, billionaire CEO, asking him, Ryan Walker, janitor, out to dinner. Every rational part of his brain said no. This could only end badly. She was his boss. The power dynamic was impossible. They lived in different worlds. People would talk, judge, assume things. But then he remembered her face above his, keeping him conscious, keeping him alive. He remembered her words. "I might not be there next time." He remembered 3 months of her watching him love her father's motorcycle, not knowing how to bridge the gap between their lives. He thought about Marcus Aurelius and dignity and choosing happiness over fear. He typed, "Yes, I'd like that very much, but I have one condition." "Name it." "We meet somewhere neutral. No hotel, no fancy restaurant where everyone knows you. Somewhere we can just be Ryan and C trying to figure this out. Deal?" "Deal. I know a place. It's called Antonio's, a small Italian restaurant near the waterfront. Thursday, December 24th, 7 p.m. It's Christmas Eve, so it won't be too crowded. We can talk without an audience. Christmas Eve, 3 days away. I'll be there. Ryan, one more thing." "Yes?" "Thank you for taking care of my father's Harley, knowing it's in good hands. That means more than you know." Ryan sat in the employee parking lot for another hour, his phone dark in his hands, his mind racing. What had he just agreed to? A Christmas Eve date with the woman who owned the building where he worked, the woman who'd saved his life, the woman whose father's motorcycle sat beneath him, carrying the weight of memory and possibility. He thought about calling it off, about messaging her back and explaining all the reasons this was a terrible idea, but he didn't, because beneath the fear and the practical concerns there was something else. Curiosity, hope, the smallest possibility that maybe, just maybe, Marcus Aurelius was right and happiness was just a matter of choosing to be brave. "Hello, my friend. How was your day today? Is everything okay?" Ryan jumped at the voice. Celeste Davenport stood 10 feet away, wearing jeans and a simple blue sweater, looking nothing like a CEO. She'd approached so quietly he hadn't heard her. "Mrs. Davenport?" He started to stand, wincing as his ribs protested. "Please don't," she said quickly. "Don't stand, don't hurt yourself, and don't call me Mrs. Davenport. That's what everyone else calls me. You can call me Celeste, or C if you prefer." "You're here," Ryan said stupidly. "I am. I was on my way out and saw you sitting here, I thought." She hesitated, something vulnerable crossing her face. "I thought maybe we should meet properly before Thursday, so it's less awkward. Is that okay?" "It's okay." She moved closer, leaning against the car parked next to his Harley, close enough to talk comfortably, far enough to maintain respectful distance. "How are your ribs?" she asked. "Healing. Your care helped." "I'm glad." She was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself that day. I panicked. Seeing you fall, catching you, keeping you alive. It was intense and I didn't know how to explain who I was without making it weird." "It's already weird," Ryan pointed out. "You're my boss." "Technically true," she admitted. "But on Thursday I'd like to not be your boss. Just Celeste. Just a woman having dinner with a man she finds interesting. Is that possible?" Ryan looked at her, really looked at her for the first time without the chaos of falling or the barrier of expectations. She was beautiful, yes, but there was something else. Something tired in her eyes. Something lonely in the way she stood, like someone who'd forgotten how to be just a person and was trying to remember. "I think it's possible," he said. "But I have to ask. Why me? You could have anyone. Why a janitor with cracked ribs in a studio apartment?" She smiled, and it transformed her face. "Because you sit on my father's motorcycle every morning for exactly 5 minutes, not riding it, just being with it. Because you read philosophy books on your lunch break and use words like circumstance and dignity in casual conversation. Because when you fell, your first thought was to apologize for making a mess, and your second thought was to thank me for catching you. Because you see the Harley the way my father did. Not as a status symbol or a toy, but as something worth caring for with your whole heart. She paused, looking down at her hands. But mostly, because when I watch you work, I see someone who chose dignity over despair, who does his job with pride, who treats everyone with respect, who doesn't let circumstances define his worth. That's rare. That's beautiful. And I wanted to know if the man who loves my father's motorcycle might be someone who could see past my bank account and see me. Ryan's throat was tight. I see you, he said quietly. I saw you the moment you caught me. They sat in comfortable silence, the December cold settling around them. After a few minutes, Celeste pushed off from the car. I should go, she said. Let you rest. But I'm looking forward to Thursday, Ryan. Me too, Celeste. She smiled again, then walked toward the executive parking level. But halfway there, she stopped and turned back. My father's name was Michael, she called. Michael Davenport. He bought that Harley the year I was born. Said it was his way of holding on to freedom when everything else in his life became about responsibility and legacy. He used to take me riding when I was little before my mother decided it was too dangerous. I think he'd be happy knowing you have it now, knowing it's still free. Then she was gone, leaving Ryan alone with his thoughts and a Harley Davidson that had become something more than just a machine. It was a connection, a bridge between worlds, a promise that maybe love wasn't about money or status, but about seeing someone fully and choosing them anyway. Thursday couldn't come fast enough. The next 3 days passed in a blur of work and anticipation. Ryan moved through his duties carefully, his ribs still tender but healing. People noticed the change in him, though they couldn't quite name it. He smiled more, spoke more, carried himself differently, like someone who'd remembered they had value. Jennifer cornered him in the break room on December 23rd. Okay, what's going on with you? She demanded. You almost died a week ago. You've been back at work for 3 days with cracked ribs and you're acting like someone who just won the lottery. Nothing's going on. Liar. Is it a woman? Ryan hesitated. Maybe. Jennifer's eyes went wide. Oh my God, it is. Who is she? Do I know her? Is she nice? Is she? Jennifer, Ryan interrupted gently. I'm having dinner with someone tomorrow. That's all I can say right now. If it goes well, maybe I'll tell you more. But right now, it's too new and too fragile to talk about. She studied his face, then smiled. Okay, but Ryan, whoever she is, she's lucky. Don't forget that. I won't. That night, Ryan did something he hadn't done in 3 years. He called his mother. Ryan? Her voice was surprised, worried. Is everything okay? Did something happen? Everything's fine, Mom. I wanted to hear your voice. Oh, a pause. That's nice, sweetheart. It's been a while. I know. I'm sorry. I've been dealing with some things. Your father's death? Among other things. They talked for an hour, the longest conversation they'd had since the funeral. Ryan told her about his fall, about the CEO who'd saved him, about the Harley and the impossible coincidence that had brought them together. His mother listened, occasionally gasping or laughing, clearly caught up in the story. This woman, she said finally. Celeste. You really like her. I don't know her yet, Ryan admitted, but I think I could, if she gives me a chance. Ryan, baby, listen to me. I know you've been hurt. I know losing your father made you build walls. But if this woman sees past your circumstances to who you really are, don't let her go. Promise me. I promise, Mom. And Ryan, your father would be proud of you. The man you've become, the way you chose dignity over bitterness. He'd be so proud. After they hung up, Ryan sat in the darkness of his apartment thinking about his father, about the last conversation they'd had the day before the cancer finally won. Son, his father had said, his voice barely a whisper, promise me something. Anything, Dad. Don't let circumstances make you small. Don't let poverty or loss or fear make you forget who you are. You're a good man, Ryan. A strong man. Don't ever apologize for that. Ryan had kept that promise. Through dropping out of college, through watching his savings disappear into medical bills, through taking a janitor job to survive, he'd kept his dignity, his self-respect, his sense of worth. And now maybe that choice was about to pay off in ways he'd never imagined. Christmas Eve dawned cold and clear. Ryan spent the morning working, his mind only half on his tasks. At 2 p.m., Marcus found him organizing cleaning supplies in the basement. Go home, Ryan, Marcus said. My shift doesn't end until 4. I'm your supervisor today. I'm telling you to go home, rest, and get ready for whatever you have planned tonight. Don't argue. Ryan opened his mouth to protest, then saw Marcus's knowing smile. How did you? I pay attention, Marcus said simply. Also, Mrs. Davenport asked me to make sure you left early today. Said you needed time to prepare for something important. Back at his apartment, Ryan faced his closet with something close to panic. He owned exactly 3 outfits that weren't work uniforms. 1 suit from his father's funeral, 2 formal, jeans and a t-shirt, 2 casual, and khakis with a button-down shirt. Possibly right, but probably boring. He chose the khakis and button-down, then spent an hour debating whether to wear his leather jacket. It was cold enough to justify it, but would it look like he was trying too hard? Or like he was trying to seem cooler than he was? In the end, he wore it. Because it was his, and it was real, and if Celeste was going to like him, she needed to like the actual him. At 6:30, he started his Harley and headed toward the waterfront. Antonio's was a small restaurant tucked between a bookstore and a coffee shop, the kind of place that survived on word of mouth and loyalty rather than advertising. Ryan had never eaten there. Too expensive, but he'd walked past it often enough to know it had a reputation for good food and quiet atmosphere. He parked the Harley out front, suddenly nervous. What if this was all a mistake? What if she took one look at him in the light of day and realized she'd made a terrible error? What if, Ryan? He turned. Celeste stood behind him wearing a simple blue dress and a coat, her blonde hair down around her shoulders. She looked nervous too, he realized, just as uncertain as he felt. "Hi," he said. "You look beautiful." "You look terrified," she replied, but she was smiling. "I am terrified. I've never done this before." "Dated someone?" "Dated someone I fell for before we even spoke." Her smile widened. "Well, technically, you fell at me, not for me, but I appreciate the poetry." He laughed, and just like that, the tension broke. She took his arm, and they walked into Antonio's together. The restaurant was exactly what Ryan had hoped for. Dim lighting, soft music, tables spaced far enough apart for privacy. The owner, presumably Antonio, greeted Celeste by name, which suggested she'd been here before. He led them to a corner table, promised the chef would make them something special, and disappeared. "You come here often?" Ryan asked as they settled into their seats. "Sometimes," Celeste admitted, "when I need to feel normal. Antonio's wife was my father's secretary for 20 years. When he died, I made sure they had enough money to open this place. They think I come here for the food. Really, I come because it's the only place where people remember my father as a person instead of a legend." "Tell me about him," Ryan said. "Your father." And she did. For the next hour, over wine Ryan couldn't pronounce and food he couldn't identify but tasted amazing, Celeste told him about Michael Davenport. Not the billionaire hotel mogul, but the man who loved motorcycles and old movies, who taught his daughter to change a tire and balance a checkbook, who believed that wealth was a responsibility, not a luxury. "He died 3 years ago," she said quietly. "Heart attack. Completely unexpected. One day he was here, planning expansions and renovating hotels. The next day he was gone, and I was 21 years old inheriting an empire I didn't want and wasn't ready for." "Is that why you have medical training?" Ryan asked. "Because you couldn't save him?" She looked at him sharply, then slowly nodded. "How did you know?" "Just a guess. You move like someone who's trying to prevent a tragedy that already happened." "That's very perceptive and accurate. I spent 2 years taking EMT courses, first aid training, anything that would help me feel less helpless. My therapist says it's a control thing, that I'm trying to control death because I couldn't control my father's. Is it working? No, but it did help me save you, so I guess there's that." They talked through dinner, through dessert, through multiple cups of coffee. Ryan told her about his father, about dropping out of college, about the choice between bitterness and dignity. Celeste told him about the loneliness of inherited wealth, about people who saw her as an opportunity rather than a person, about watching her father's motorcycle sit unused in the garage for 2 years because selling it felt like betraying his memory. "But you did sell it eventually," Ryan said. "I had to. My mother insisted. Said it was unhealthy to keep his things like a shrine, so I let it go in an estate sale, trying to pretend I was moving on. Then 2 years later, I'm driving to work before dawn, trying to avoid traffic, and I see a janitor sitting on a blue Harley in the employee parking lot, just sitting there, not riding, not showing off, just being present with it, and I knew it was my father's bike, and I knew the man sitting on it was someone special. So you've been watching me for 2 months. Creepy? No, Ryan said honestly. Human. You wanted to know who I was before taking the risk of meeting me. Did I pass the test?" He reached across the table, taking her hand. I'm here, aren't I? Her fingers intertwined with his, and Ryan felt something shift in the universe. This was real. This was happening. This woman, this impossible, complicated, beautiful woman, was holding his hand across a table on Christmas Eve, and the world hadn't ended. Ryan, she said softly, I need to tell you something. Okay. I'm not good at this. Relationships, I mean. I've been hurt before, by people who wanted my money or my connections or my influence. I built walls, big walls, and now I'm sitting here with you and those walls are crumbling and it's terrifying. I'm terrified too, he admitted. You're my boss, you're a billionaire, I'm a janitor who lives in a studio apartment. This makes no sense. No, she agreed. It doesn't. But does it have to make sense to be real? Before Ryan could answer, his phone buzzed. He ignored it, but Celeste glanced at his pocket. You should check that, she said. It could be important. Reluctantly, he pulled out his phone. A message from Marcus. Ryan, you need to come to the hotel, now, emergency. I'll explain when you get here. Ryan's heart sank. I'm sorry, he said to Celeste. There's an emergency at the hotel. I have to. I'll drive you, she said, immediately standing. Let's go. They paid and rushed to her Range Rover, Celeste driving while Ryan tried to call Marcus. No answer. The hotel was 15 minutes away, but Celeste made it in 10, her hands steady on the wheel. The lobby was chaos when they arrived. People running, security everywhere, and in the center of it all, Marcus, covered in soot, coughing. What happened? Celeste demanded, immediately falling into CEO mode. Fire, Marcus gasped. In the basement, electrical. We got everyone out, but Ryan, your locker. What about my locker? The safety harness you got. It was in there. And the card. The fire destroyed everything in that section. I'm so sorry. Ryan felt something cold settle in his stomach. The safety harness Celeste had given him. The card with her handwriting. Gone. It's just things, he said, trying to sound like he meant it. No, Celeste said quietly. It was a promise that I'd keep you safe, and now it's gone. She turned to Marcus. Is everyone okay? Everyone's fine. No injuries. But the basement is trashed. Celeste nodded, pulling out her phone. For the next 2 hours, Ryan watched her work. She coordinated with fire departments, insurance adjusters, staff members. She made decisions rapidly, never hesitating, taking care of everyone and everything with practiced efficiency. This was the CEO, the billionaire, the empire builder, and she was magnificent. At midnight, with the crisis contained and the hotel secure, they found themselves back in the parking lot, both exhausted. Merry Christmas, Ryan said quietly. Celeste laughed, tired and real. Merry Christmas. Hell of a first date. Does this count as a first date? We spent half of it at a fire scene. It counts, she said firmly. Everything counts. They stood by his Harley, neither wanting to leave but both too tired to continue. Finally, Celeste reached into her pocket and pulled out something small. I was going to give you this at dinner, she said. But the fire interrupted, so here, Christmas gift. She handed him a key, a motorcycle key, old and worn, with a small blue ribbon tied to it. This is my father's original key to the Harley, she confirmed. I kept it when we sold the bike. Thought maybe one day I'd buy it back. But then you bought it, and you loved it, and I realized that's better than me having it. So this is yours now, to go with the bike that was always meant to be yours. Ryan's vision blurred. Celeste, I can't. You can, and you will, because that bike brought us together, and I think my father would like knowing his Harley found its way to someone who'd use it to find love. Don't you? Ryan pulled her into a hug, careful of his ribs, and felt her arms wrap around him. They stood like that for a long moment, two people finding comfort in each other amidst the chaos of the night. This is crazy, he whispered. I know. I'm falling for you. I know. I'm falling too. They pulled back and Celeste kissed him. Gentle, tentative, perfect. When they broke apart, both were smiling. So, she said, second date? Absolutely. But maybe somewhere without fires? Deal. Ryan rode home on his Harley, her father's key in his pocket, tasting her kiss on his lips, and thought about fate and coincidence and the possibility that sometimes, just sometimes, the universe conspires to bring the right people together at exactly the right moment. As he pulled into his apartment complex, he saw a message on his phone from Celeste. Thank you for tonight. Thank you for loving my father's bike. Thank you for being brave enough to take a chance on me. I don't know where this goes, but I'm excited to find out. And Ryan, the creator of this story, wants you to know something. Merry Christmas to everyone. May God protect you all. That's his wish for you, for us, for everyone reading this. Sometimes miracles happen. Sometimes we fall and someone catches us. Sometimes we inherit what we need exactly when we need it. Believe in that. Believe in second chances and dignity and the courage to love beyond circumstance. That's the Christmas miracle. Not magic, but choice. The choice to be brave. See, Ryan read it 3 times, then saved it, knowing he'd read it again tomorrow, and the day after, and every time he needed to remember that he was worthy of being chosen. As he fell asleep, he thought about Thursday's dinner, about Celeste's hand in his, about the way she'd looked at him when she said she was falling too, and he smiled, because for the first time in 3 years, since his father's death, since dropping out of college, since choosing dignity over despair, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The week between Christmas and New Year's passed like a dream Ryan wasn't sure he wanted to wake from. He and Celeste saw each other every day, finding stolen moments between her executive meetings and his janitorial shifts. They'd meet for coffee at dawn, share lunch in hidden corners of the hotel, text throughout the day like teenagers discovering love for the first time. But beneath the joy, Ryan felt a growing tension. The hotel staff had started noticing. Whispers followed him through hallways. Jennifer had cornered him twice, demanding to know if the mystery woman was who she thought it was. Marcus watched them with knowing eyes but said nothing. On New Year's Eve morning, Celeste called him at 5 a.m. "Meet me at the beach," she said, "where the pier ends. I need to talk to you about something important." Ryan's stomach dropped. Those words, something important, rarely preceded good news. He rode his Harley through empty streets, the ocean wind cutting through his leather jacket, her father's key heavy in his pocket. She was waiting when he arrived, sitting on the pier's edge, her feet dangling over the water. The sunrise painted her hair gold, and Ryan's heart ached at how beautiful she looked, how fragile this moment felt. "Hey," he said, sitting beside her. "Hey." She didn't look at him. "I've been thinking about us, about what this means, what it costs." "Celeste, let me finish." She took a deep breath. "Yesterday, 3 board members asked me about you, about the janitor I've been seen with. They said I'm jeopardizing the company's image, that a CEO dating an employee, especially one in a subordinate position, creates liability issues and looks unprofessional. They suggested I either end the relationship or let you go." Ryan felt cold. "So you're breaking up with me?" "No." She finally turned to face him, and her eyes were fierce. "I'm telling you that I told them to mind their own business, that who I date is my decision, not theirs, that you're not just a janitor, you're the man I'm falling in love with, and they can accept it or find another CEO." Ryan stared at her. "You said that? To your board?" "I said that, and more. I told them about the Harley, about my father, about how you've shown me what it means to live with dignity regardless of circumstances. I told them that if they can't see your value, that's their failure, not yours. You could lose everything," Ryan said quietly. "Your position, your company, your father's legacy. Or I could gain everything that actually matters," she countered. "But Ryan, I need to know something. Are you willing to weather this storm with me? Because it's going to get harder before it gets easier. People will judge us, criticize us, try to tear us apart. I need to know if you're brave enough to stand beside me through all of that." Ryan thought about his father's words. "Don't let circumstances make you small." He thought about Marcus Aurelius and the choice to find happiness in how you think. He thought about every morning sitting on that blue Harley, choosing dignity over despair. "I'm brave enough," he said, "but I have a condition." "What?" "I want to go back to school, finish my engineering degree. Not because I'm ashamed of being a janitor, but because I want to be your partner in every sense. Not someone you have to defend, but someone who stands beside you as an equal. Can you wait for that? Can you believe in that version of us?" Celeste's eyes filled with tears. "Ryan Walker, I would wait forever for that version of us. But I need you to understand something. You're already my equal. The degree doesn't change that. Your job doesn't change that. You're my equal because of who you are, not what you do." "I know," Ryan said, "but I want to do this. For me. To finish what I started before life got complicated. Will you help me?" "Of course I will. We'll figure it out together." They sat in silence, watching the sun rise over the ocean, their hands intertwined. Finally, Ryan spoke again. "I have something to tell you, too. About the Harley." "What about it?" "I found something in the saddlebag. A letter." Your father wrote it to you, apparently planning to give it to you on your 21st birthday, but he died before he could. I've been carrying it with me, trying to figure out when to give it to you. Celeste went very still. My father wrote me a letter. Ryan pulled the envelope from his jacket pocket, worn and creased from 3 years of being forgotten in a saddlebag. Celeste took it with shaking hands, opening it carefully. My dearest Celeste, she read aloud, her voice breaking. If you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry for that. Sorry I won't see you grow into the woman I know you'll become. But I want you to know something. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and more loved than you can imagine. Don't let this company, this wealth, this legacy become a cage. The Harley was my freedom. I hope you find yours, whatever it looks like. And when you do, hold on to it with both hands and don't let go. Love fully. Live bravely. That's all any of us can do. I love you more than words can express. Your father, Michael. Celeste was crying openly now. Ryan held her as she sobbed. 3 years of grief pouring out on a pier at sunrise on New Year's Eve. When she finally quieted, she looked up at him. He would have liked you, she said. My father. He would have seen in you what I see. The dignity, the strength, the quiet courage. I wish I could have met him. In a way you did. Through the Harley. Through the letter. Through me. He's still here, Ryan. In all the ways that matter. They stayed at the pier until the beach filled with morning joggers and dog walkers. Finally, Celeste stood, pulling Ryan to his feet. Come on, she said. We have a New Year's Eve party to get ready for. The hotel's throwing one and I want you there. As my date, officially, no more hiding. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. That night, Ryan wore his funeral suit, the only formal wear he owned. Celeste sent a car for him, which felt ridiculous but also kind of wonderful. When he arrived at the hotel, transformed by lights and decorations into something magical, Marcus was waiting. You clean up nice, Walker, Marcus said with a grin. Is she here yet? Upstairs getting ready. She wanted me to tell you she's nervous. The CEO is nervous? The woman is nervous, Marcus corrected. Big difference. She's about to introduce you to everyone who matters in her world. That's terrifying. At 8 p.m., the ballroom doors opened, and Celeste descended the grand staircase in a midnight blue dress that matched her eyes, matched the Harley, matched everything that mattered. The room went quiet as she crossed to where Ryan stood, every eye watching. Hi, she said softly. Hi, he replied. You look incredible. So do you. She took his hand. Ready? For what? To dance, to be seen, to start our life together right here, right now, in front of everyone. Ryan led her onto the dance floor as a slow song began. They moved together naturally, finding their rhythm, aware of the whispers and stares, but choosing not to care. This was their moment, their choice, their brave beginning. What was your first love, Ryan? Celeste asked suddenly. Do you still remember? Ryan smiled. I'm looking at her. That's cheesy, but true. I dated in high school, in college, but I never felt this before. This certainty, this sense of rightness. So yes, you're my first love. What about you? Same, she admitted. I've had relationships, but nothing that felt like this. Like finding something I didn't know I was missing. As midnight approached, they stood on the hotel's rooftop terrace, overlooking the city. Other guests mingled around them, but Ryan and Celeste existed in their own world. 10 seconds, someone called out. Ryan, Celeste said urgently. Before the new year starts, I need to tell you something. What? I love you. I know it's fast, I know it's crazy, but I love you. And I wanted you to know before we step into whatever comes next. The countdown began. 5, 4, 3. I love you too, Ryan said. More than I thought possible. 2, 1. Happy New Year. They kissed as fireworks exploded over the city, as champagne corks popped, as the world celebrated new beginnings. And in that moment, Ryan understood what his father had meant. Happiness wasn't about circumstances. It was about choices. The choice to be brave, to love fully, to believe that dignity and worth came from within, not from bank accounts or job titles. 6 months later, Ryan started his first day back at university, funded by a scholarship Celeste had quietly established for adult learners returning to education. He still worked at the hotel, but now as an engineering consultant, helping design the renovations Celeste had planned. They'd moved in together, a modest apartment that was theirs, not hers or his, but theirs. The blue Harley sat in their shared garage, lovingly maintained, ridden every weekend. Sometimes Celeste rode with him, her arms around his waist, her father's key hanging from the ignition. And every time they rode, Ryan felt Michael Davenport's presence, his blessing, his quiet approval. On their 1-year anniversary, Ryan proposed on the same pier where they'd made their choice to be brave. Celeste said yes before he'd even finished asking. They married 6 months later in a small ceremony at Antonio's restaurant, surrounded by people who'd seen them fall and rise and choose each other every single day. The board members who'd questioned their relationship, some left. Some stayed and learned to respect the janitor-turned-engineer who'd stolen their CEO's heart, but mostly they learned that love doesn't follow corporate protocols or social hierarchies. It follows courage. It follows choice. It follows two people who look at each other and say, yes, you, always you. Years later, when people asked how they'd met, Ryan would smile and say, I fell for her, literally. And Celeste would add, and I caught him. Best decision I ever made. Their story became legend at the Mel Brock Hotel, the janitor and the CEO, the Harley and the letter, the Christmas miracle that happened because two lonely people chose to be brave enough to see each other fully and love what they found. And somewhere, Ryan liked to believe, Michael Davenport smiled, knowing his daughter had found her freedom, and his Harley had brought her exactly what she needed. A man who loved with dignity, who chose courage over fear, and who understood that the most valuable things in life can't be bought. They can only be chosen, cherished, and held onto with both hands and a full heart.